welcome to another live video. I would like to bring your attention to some concerns that were raised yesterday. I'm not sure if we're live yet. Are we live? Hello everyone and welcome to another live video. The intention of the video this evening is to briefly discuss the intention of the webinar that was held yesterday by myself in relation to conflicts of interest. It has been brought to my attention today that some people may have been confused about the message that I was trying to convey, and so I wanted to make it very clear what my position was and make sure that there was no further confusion in relation to my message. What I would like to do is again read from a very fixed transcript. If you don't mind me reading, I'll just continue on. So the intention of the webinar yesterday was to start a conversation about what the VET and international education sector in Australia considers to be a conflict of interest between its regulators and the regulated. It was also designed to get people thinking about what their position is on conflicts of interest. It was to expose an issue that I personally felt was not in the public interest and inconsistent with the objects of the NVR Act, and therefore ASQA's regulatory ambit so often quoted in tribunal matters, and to raise concerns about what this might mean for many of my past, current and future clients who have either been victims of regulatory decisions, including suspensions, cancellations of registration and rejections of applications, and those people who are equally affected that are not my clients. One thing I would like to be very clear about in relation to yesterday's webinar: I am not rescinding my position. My position remains the same. I was and still am genuinely shocked about what has ultimately transpired. I will, however, clarify my reasons for this, as it seems that some people have been confused about what I was actually saying. At no time did I allege, nor am I alleging now, that there has been an actual conflict of interest. I did not allege that any law had potentially been broken. In fact, there are no laws, if you remember. What I did say in relation to these issues was that there is currently no legislation that prevents these types of things from happening. I also made specific reference to the APS Values and Code of Conduct in Practice Guide available on the website of the Australian Public Service Commission, and to which I will post a link in the comments after this video. I wish to reinforce that I am shocked because when I worked at the Department of Education Services in International and Higher Education Regulation in Western Australia in 2009, I was required as part of my induction to complete one of the most beneficial, valuable and meaningful courses that I have ever completed, and it still influences every business decision that I make today, some 11 years later. That course was called Accountable and Ethical Decision Making in the WA Public Sector. I can only imagine that there is a similar course that employees of the Australian Public Service have to complete as they begin their employment in the Australian Public Service. Given this context, as well as the APS Values and Code of Conduct in Practice Guide on the Australian Public Service Commission website, I find it incomprehensible that such a situation should become an issue of such magnitude. The APS Values and Code of Conduct in Practice Guide very clearly describe conflicts of interest as being real and or perceived. Section 5.1.3 describes a real conflict of interest as occurring where there is a conflict between the public duty and personal interests of an employee that improperly influences the employee in the performance of his or her duties. I did not at any time allege that this happened. Section 5.1.4 states that an apparent conflict of interest occurs where it appears that an employee's personal interest could improperly influence the performance of his or her duties, but this is not in fact the case. Often a perceived conflict of interest is defined by the Commonwealth Ombudsman as where private interests are not, but could come into direct conflict with official duties. I will post the link to this document in the comments also. Section 5.1.5 of the APS Values and Code of Conduct in Practice Guide states that the appearance of a conflict can be just as damaging to public confidence in public administration as a conflict which gives rise to a concern based on objective facts. It is on this basis that I ask the question of the sector generally. How do you feel about what has transpired? Do you believe this is a potential conflict of interest? Do you believe that this is an issue that needs to be further investigated by ASQA in its employment and separation of employment policies and procedures for all employees or only some employees? Where do you draw the line? At senior levels of management who have heavily influenced the sector, or just auditors, or across the board? These are important questions for our sector to maintain its integrity, and I am concerned that people may have taken out of context what I did say and what I meant. While I did record the session, I don't believe that it serves any purpose to release it at this stage. I encourage everyone to try and jump on and listen as and when I do go live, albeit I do realise I do not always give a lot of notice. If there is a future need to release the video, I may consider it, but for now I will not. I am glad that the webinar has led to some critical conversations about conflicts of interest. After all, there was a time not too long ago, and even still, where RTOs and TAFEs around the country were being deemed critically not compliant and threatened with suspension or cancellation because there was a conflict of interest in training and assessment. It seems appropriate then that similar measures must surely be expected of our regulator. I encourage everyone to continue the conversation and make your voices and opinions of the issues heard. Remember, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And these are critical issues at an incredibly momentous time in the reform process of our sector. Make sure your voice is heard. Continue having those discussions. Continue asking yourself and others, what are your reflections on those particular issues? And most of all, make your voices heard to ministers and to ASQA themselves. When the ASQA stakeholder liaison group is established, whoever's on it, if you are able to, also make your voice and your opinion heard and noted officially via that mechanism. I believe it will have the potential to make some great change, but while issues like this continue to surround our sector and make us question and have lack of confidence in public administrative decisions by a statutory regulatory body, we will continue to have potential scandals. Thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Please continue those conversations on social media. They have been fantastic. I just wanted to clarify my own personal position and to make it very clear, I did not make any allegations that there was misconduct or improper conduct. I was simply asking questions about perceived conflicts of interest and whether or not certain guidelines and policies had been followed in accordance with the Australian Public Service Commission website. Thank you very much, and bye for now.